The battlefield betrayal. The sky above Ravos 9 was full of fire and smoke. Explosions shook the red hills. Dust covered everything. Bodies of soldiers, human and alien, lay broken across the battlefield. Metal scraps from tanks and drones still burned in the heat. In the middle of this wreckage, Commander Alexa tried to move. She couldn't. Her sharp warrior armor was torn. Her helmet was cracked. And her legs, they were gone. Torn away in the last blast. Only silence now. Only pain. She looked around, no one came. Her comm device buzzed weakly. Static. Then a voice. Commander Alexa, status? She grabbed the device with bloody fingers. Alive. Legs gone. I'm under rubble. Requesting evac. There was a pause. Too long. Then another voice. Cold. Direct. Your signal is low. We're moving to fallback. Point, you're not recoverable. Honor to you, Commander. The line cut off. Alexa stared. No. They didn't say it. But she heard what they meant. They were leaving her. Her own people. Her squad. They knew she was alive. And still they turned. Away, she shouted into the dead comm. You cowards, I'm still breathing. No answer. She dropped the device and screamed. Hours passed, maybe more. She lay still in the dirt, broken and burning from the inside. A shadow moved in the distance. She reached for her blade with the last of her strength. If it was an enemy, she would die with steel in hand. The shadow came closer. One figure, tall, human. He wore armor marked with a red eagle, a Marine. He stopped when he saw her. His helmet visor retracted slowly, revealing a dusty face with tired, sharp eyes. A scar crossed his cheek. His weapon stayed at his side. They stared at each other. Alexa raised her blade weakly. I'll die fighting, she hissed. The human Marine didn't lift his gun. Instead, he dropped his backpack and knelt beside her. She blinked, confused. What are you doing? He pulled out water and held it to her mouth. Helping, she spat. Enemy. He looked at her calmly. Not right now. She looked away. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She didn't want his help. But she didn't want to die either. Her voice cracked. My own left me. I saw. They said I was not useful. The Marine paused, then said, That's not how we do things. She looked at him. Why are you still here? He shrugged. Because you are. He gently pulled pieces of wreckage off her body, working slowly to avoid hurting her more. When she passed out from the pain, he carried her to a small rock shelter nearby. He laid her down, covered her with his coat, and started a fire. She woke later with her eyes wide. You didn't kill me? He smirked. Didn't feel like it. She stared at the flames. I should be dead. He poked the fire and replied, But you're not. He stood up and looked at the stars. Name Sergeant Liam Cross, Earth Marine. She didn't answer. He glanced back. You don't have to give me yours. Doesn't matter, she whispered. Alexa? He nodded. All right then. Alexa. The night grew cold. The war continued far away. But here, under a cracked hill, a human and an alien warrior shared warmth. Not from fire alone, but from something deeper. From the first moment of understanding, she had lost everything. Her rank, her legs, her people. But this human, he stayed. She closed her eyes and whispered, They called me useless. He answered softly, They were wrong. A broken warrior and a silent fire. The fire burned low. A quiet wind passed through the rock shelter, pushing ashes across the floor. Outside, the battlefield was silent. No explosions, no gunfire, just cold air and the distant hum of retreating ships. Inside, Alexa opened her eyes. Pain greeted her first, then the soft smell of firewood. Then, him. Sergeant Liam Cross sat against the far wall of the shelter, arms crossed, helmet beside him. He looked half awake, half ready to fight. A rifle rested near his leg, but it wasn't pointed at her. She moved. Pain shot through her body. She gritted her teeth and looked down. Still no legs. Only thick bandages where her knees once were. She tried to sit up. He noticed right away. "Easy," Liam said. "You lost a lot of blood." She ignored him and pushed herself up using her arms. He stood, walked over, and handed her water. She hesitated, then took it. Small sips. Her throat burned. Her pride burned worse. He sat back down, silent. She finally spoke. "You should have left me." Liam didn't look at her. "Yeah, maybe. But you didn't." "Nope." "Why?" He turned his head slightly. "You already asked that yesterday, and I still don't believe the answer." He glanced at her again. "That's your choice." Silence filled the cave again. Not empty silence. Heavy silence. The kind that speaks when words can't. Alixa looked at the fire. "Back home, when a warrior loses their legs in battle, we give them a funeral." "But you're still alive," Liam replied. She stared at him. That never mattered. Liam poked at the fire with a stick. "Where I'm from," he said, "we don't throw away people because they're broken." She laughed bitterly. "Then your people are fools." He shrugged. "Or just stubborn." Later, Liam brought her food. Soft protein paste from his emergency rations. It tasted like rubber. She ate it anyway. She was starving. As she chewed, he repaired the old communicator on his wrist. "No signal yet," he muttered. "But I'll keep trying." "For what?" she asked. "Anyone. Could be friendly. Could be not. And if they're not?" He looked at her. "Then I'll still be between them and you." She froze. Her chest felt heavy. No one had ever said that before, not even her own, especially not her own. She looked at him differently now. Not like an enemy, not like a fool, but like something dangerous and rare. A human who meant what he said. That night, as the fire crackled low, Alixa couldn't sleep. She stared at the rough cave ceiling and whispered, "I was a commander." "I figured," Liam said without looking up. "I led 30 warriors, trained hundreds. And they left you?" "Yes." He paused. "Then they were never worth your command." She turned to him, and for the first time didn't look angry. She looked like someone trying not to cry. In the middle of the night, she jolted awake from a nightmare. A blast, her legs gone again, her squad walking away. She gasped for breath, and then his voice. Low, steady. "I'm still here." She looked to the side. Liam was awake, watching her. She nodded once, then closed her eyes again, and slept. She no longer cared why he stayed. She only cared that he hadn't left. No one came for her days past. The fire stayed small, the wound stayed closed, and the silence stayed heavy. Alixa sat propped against the cave wall, arms folded across her chest. She watched the horizon through the crack in the stone. The same view every day. Dust, broken hills, scattered wreckage, and emptiness. She listened for engines, for orders, for a voice calling her name. But the only voice that spoke in the canyon anymore was his. Sergeant Liam Cross brought food twice a day. He never said much unless she started it, but he always made sure she was fed, hydrated, and covered before sleeping. He treated her like a soldier, even when she no longer felt like one. On the fourth day, she asked, "Any signals?" He shook his head. "Just static. I'll try again tonight." She looked back at the sky. Her own people were out there. She knew they were. Her unit had survived the last transmission. They'd regrouped. They had resources. Medical ships. Recovery. Teams, they would come. Any moment now. She just had to wait. On the fifth day, Liam walked in carrying a cloth bundle. "What's that?" she asked. He knelt and unwrapped it. 3 salvaged energy cores, half a med kit, and 2 ration packs. "Found an old drop pod down the ridge," he said. "Still had supplies." She looked at him. "You're bleeding." He shrugged. "Took a tumble." She stared at the red line across his arm. You went out there alone? He nodded. For me? He raised an eyebrow. I didn't do it for the view. That night she asked the question aloud. Why do you still care what happens to me? He replied without thinking. Because you're still here. She paused. Most would not agree. Then most are wrong. On the 6th day, a signal beeped softly on Liam's comm. Alixa's heart jumped. Is it them? Liam checked. A short message. Encrypted. Alien military signature. Her people. She sat up straight. What does it say? Liam read slowly. Clear. Zone confirmed. Do not engage. Area swept. No survivors expected. She blinked. No survivors expected? He nodded. They wrote me off. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She stared at the wall for a long time, then whispered. They really aren't coming. Liam sat beside her, wordless. She turned her head, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. I thought I mattered. You do. She looked at him. He said it again, firmer. You matter. That night she didn't speak. She didn't sleep. She just sat by the fire and let her tears dry in the heat. In the early morning, she finally spoke. When I was a cadet, she said, I broke my wrist during a climb. My instructor told me to hide it, said weakness should be buried, not shown. She chuckled without humor. I did what he said. I climbed with one arm, passed the test. Liam stared at her. Sounds brutal. It was pride. It was poison. She turned her head sharply. What? He looked her in the eye. You were trained to be strong alone. But real strength is letting someone stay when you can't keep standing. She said nothing. Then quietly, You didn't run. He gave a soft smile. Didn't feel like running. By the 7th day, she stopped asking about signals. She stopped staring at the sky and started watching him. How he moved. How he limped when he thought she wasn't looking. How he winced when lifting things. How he still kept her warm before himself. That evening, while he was boiling water, she reached over and placed her hand gently on his. He looked at her surprised. She didn't say a word, but her eyes did. You're the only one who came. And for the first time since losing her legs, she didn't feel left behind. She felt chosen. The day she tried to die. The morning came colder than the last. The firewood was low. The wind pushed dust into the shelter, and inside Alixa stared at the stone wall, her eyes empty. She hadn't spoken in hours, not since she woke, not since she made her decision. Sergeant Liam Cross moved quietly near the entrance, scanning the hills for movement. The enemy was still out there somewhere, but today he was more worried about the silence behind him than the danger ahead. He turned to look at her. Want water? He asked. She didn't respond. Alixa? Nothing. He walked closer, knelt beside her. Her face was still. Her hands were folded. But her eyes, they looked past him. Talk to me, he said. Her lips parted. Soft. Flat. I've made peace. His jaw tensed. Peace with what? With being left. She reached slowly into the pouch beside her and pulled out a sharp piece of scrap. Small, rusted, but enough. Liam's heart dropped. No, he said, grabbing her wrist gently. Don't do this. I'm not meant to live like this, she whispered. Not like this, no legs, no honor. My name already died. This is just the last step. His voice shook with quiet anger. Then you don't know what honor really means. She pulled her hand back, blade still gripped tight. Don't pretend to understand, she hissed. You're not one of us. You don't know what it's like to be seen as a symbol, and then thrown away like garbage. He didn't flinch. He stood slowly, walked to the center of the cave, and then he did something she didn't expect. He took off his shirt, turned his back to her, and showed her the scars. Lines, burn marks, stitches. One long, twisted scar ran from shoulder to lower back. She stared frozen. Liam's voice was low. I was a new recruit, first drop mission. My squad got ambushed. We ran into a minefield. I pushed two rookies out of the blast radius. He turned, his eyes locked with hers. They lived. I didn't walk for a year. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. He stepped closer. I was discharged, told I'd never serve again. But I fought to return, not to earn glory, but because I couldn't leave others behind. He sat beside her now. The scrap blade still rested in her palm. He didn't take it. He didn't try to stop her with force. He used something else, his presence. "You want to die?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. "Then do it. But not because they threw you away. Not because you think you're broken. If you go, do it because you've truly decided that your story ends here." She looked at the blade, at his face, at the fire, and for the first time since her injury, she saw her reflection in his eyes. Not weak, not worthless, just hurting, just lost, but still alive. Her fingers opened slowly. The blade fell to the cave floor. She collapsed into herself, shoulders shaking, chest heaving. Liam reached forward and wrapped his arms around her. She didn't pull away. She cried into his shoulder. Quiet, shaking tears that had waited far too long. "I didn't want to die," she whispered. "I know," he said. "You just didn't want to be alone anymore." That night they didn't sleep. They sat side by side near the fire, watching the stars blink through the cave's crack. She asked softly, "Why didn't you stop me sooner?" He looked at her. "I was waiting to see if you'd still choose to stay. And if I hadn't, I would have stayed anyway." Alexa stared into the flame, then said, voice steady, "I don't want to be buried. Not like this. I want to stand again." Liam nodded. "Then I'll help you rise." Her first step wasn't hers. The days after her choice to live were quiet, but not empty. Alexa sat upright now, awake before the sun. Her face still held pain, but her eyes had changed. There was a fire in them again, not wild, but steady. Like a star that refused to burn out. Every morning she watched Liam Cross disappear down the canyon trail. He returned hours later, dusty, sweating, arms full of scrap, metal plates, wires, power cells. She asked nothing, he answered nothing, but each evening she saw him working silently in the back of the cave, cutting, bending, welding. On the third day, she finally asked, "What are you building?" Liam didn't look up. "Legs," he said simply. She blinked. "For who?" He finally looked at her. "For you." Alexa laughed, a bitter sound. "You're not an engineer?" "Nope." "You're not even my kind." "Nope again, then why?" He set down a welded rod, wiped his forehead and said, "Because you don't need to be one of us to deserve to stand again." That night, she stared at the unfinished limbs, rough, uneven, full of human tech and battlefield parts. Not beautiful, not precise, but real, like her. On the fifth day, Liam helped her strap them on. They were heavy, strange, unbalanced. They didn't look like warrior gear, they looked like survival. He knelt in front of her, checking each connection. "Ready?" he asked. She hesitated. "I'm scared." He smiled. "Good. That means you're doing something that matters." She exhaled, nodded. He took both her hands. "Let's rise." She pushed down. The metal legs hissed and whined. Pain shot through her lower body. Her arms shook, and then she stood. Not tall, not steady, but upright. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I'm up." "You're up," Liam echoed. She started to fall. He caught her, held her firm. "Lean on me." She took a step, then another, then fell hard into his chest. He didn't move, didn't laugh, didn't speak. He just held her like she mattered. Later, resting against the wall, she whispered, "These aren't my legs." "No," Liam said. "They're Just your first. She looked down at them, rough metal and black straps. I hate them. I hated my first too. She raised an eyebrow. You had legs like this? No. But I had a life I didn't choose, that I had to grow through. You're not done growing yet. The next morning she stood again. Longer this time. Liam watched. From the fire, not helping, just ready, just present. When she fell, she grunted, got back up, without help. Each night they made small changes, tighter straps, better balance, smaller battery pack. By the 7th day, she could walk from one end of the cave to the other without falling. She stood at the mouth of the cave one morning, wind in her face, stars still blinking in the dawn, and whispered, I'm still me. Liam stood beside her. No, he said, quietly. You're something more now. She turned to him. Why? Because the first step wasn't yours alone. But every step after this is. That evening she placed her hand on his chest and looked him in the eyes. I will walk again, I will fight again. But not because of duty. He waited. She said it clearly. Because you reminded me I'm not just a weapon. I'm a life worth standing for. And as the stars faded into morning, Alexa took her first full walk outside the cave. Legs of scrap, body of scars, but her spine, straight. She wasn't whole. She was new, and that was stronger than anything she had ever been before. Fire in her blood again. The wind was sharper that morning. Not natural. Wrong. Alexa paused at the mouth of the cave. Her new legs, still heavy and strange, clicked softly with every shift. She stared into the canyon below, where shadows moved. Too many, too fast. Behind her, Liam Cross was already loading his rifle. They found us, he said calmly. She nodded. How many? Too many for a straight fight. Recon squad, maybe more. She turned back to the edge, her fists clenched. I was hoping for this. Liam raised an eyebrow. Really? She looked at him, fire in her eyes. They left me behind like broken cargo. I want them to see what they left. He gave a small smile. All right then, Commander. They had only minutes. Liam checked traps. Alexa rewired her legs, boosting the power feed for quicker movement. She didn't need to run. She just needed to stand and fight. She crouched beside, a fallen beam watching the dust below. Then she saw them. 7 soldiers in sleek armor, her old faction. They were scanning wreckage, weapons ready, eyes hard. One of them called out, Nothing here, no signals. Another pointed, Check the cave. They began to move. Liam whispered, We can fall back, slip out behind the ridge. But Alexa didn't move. No, she said. They need to see me. Standing. He didn't argue, just took his place beside her. 2 soldiers against 7. The first soldier entered the cave mouth. He froze when he saw them. Alexa stepped into view, shoulders straight, chin high, metal legs locked beneath her. The soldier's mouth fell open. Alexa, she didn't blink. You abandoned me. We thought you were dead, weak, useless. She took 1 step forward. Wrong. The soldier raised his weapon, but Liam's shot dropped him before he could aim. Alexa moved fast, faster than any of them expected. Her legs hissed, powered by rage and will. She slammed into the second soldier like a wall of fury, knocking him to the ground and disarming him. 2 more rushed in. Liam took one. She took the other. No mercy, no pause, only purpose. They fought like one. She covered his blind spots. He kept her flanks clear. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. This wasn't survival anymore. This was proof that she was never meant to be. Discarded. That broken didn't mean beaten. As the last soldier backed away, bleeding and panting, he stared at her in fear. You were supposed to die. She stepped closer, towering now despite the metal legs and scorched armor. She pointed to Liam beside her. I didn't. Because he stayed. She leaned forward. And now I walk. because I chose to rise. The soldier dropped his weapon, fled. Liam lowered his rifle. You all right? She wiped blood from her cheek. I've never been more alive. Later, after the smoke cleared, they sat by the fire again. Her hands trembled slightly, adrenaline fading, but her eyes stayed sharp. She looked at Liam and said, You saw something in me. When I didn't, he looked back. No, I just stayed long enough for you to see it. She glanced down at her legs. They were ugly before, she said. Heavy, loud. And now? She smiled. Now they're mine. From deep in the canyon, a relay drone buzzed in the distance. Someone had recorded the battle, and someone would send it far across the stars. A message would follow. The broken warrior walks again. She didn't die. She stood, with a human beside her.